one thing after another after another after another. That's my yeah. I know it's their brain and their mind because I know. Yes, yes. Well, last Sunday I had to call the ambulance because she was shipping it out 7 degrees. But when I go online, I look at E. coli. She's got E. coli in the blood. Yes, and she was cold and she had a fever and she has COPD, so she was having a heck of a time breathing. I gave her inhalers, but I just decided to call the ambulance and I'm so glad I did. But she's not now finished on so many heavy antibiotics that she's got no good immune system. And I'm gonna, once this is all said and done, I'm gonna ask the doctors for a good antibiotic. She needs. Okay, thank you, bless you. Okay. Yes, nice to see you, Kim. Thank you.
The other one was just brought to families.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here. Of course, my name is Perry Deering. I am the President of the Chamber of Commerce, Municipal District Chamber of Commerce, of course. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, it is my pleasure to welcome you all tonight to the second Municipal Forum. Just a little off topic, I want to just mention something that as the Chamber of Commerce, we again are more in tune with the business. I know that there's a lot of questions that come forth that are of social nature. They are very important questions. Don't feel that you can't ask that question on another time or just directly to anyone. But any questions kind of more on the business on the city side, we focus on those. For some of you, I've seen some familiar faces from last night, but I also seen some new faces here tonight. This is great. For those that were here last night, you're probably going to be able to check to see if my notes are on cue from last night. So anyway, we'll carry on. So for the ones that weren't here last night, I will go over a little bit of the chamber, just to kind of keep it informed. So the Municipal Chamber of Commerce has been advocating for business since 1900. It is responsible for seeking answers and questions and concerns of importance to our membership. Currently, the Chamber has over 800 members, ranging from one-person, home-based business to large corporation. Over the past council term, the Municipal District Chamber of Commerce has worked on several municipal issues, including sustainable municipal finance, diversifying local economy, municipal engagement and transparency, and my favorite, red tape reduction, levies, changes in taxation, just to name a few. We are committed to voicing the concerns of the business community on their behalf. Tonight we'll be hearing from a mix of new and incumbent council candidates for the City of Medicine Hat as they explain their positions on various issues facing our city, while also explaining their qualifications and expertise that has led them to vie for the position to help govern a city of 63,000. Because the Chamber is a nonpartisan organization, we are proud to advocate for the open and, very important, transparency at all levels of government, and we encourage that our business members and our community take a vast interest in electing their representative and making an informed vote. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the evening. Ken Cobley has been a president and CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, known as the ACC, since February of 2005. Over the past 11 years, Ken has developed the ACC's formula profile as a strong, consistent voice for Alberta businesses. Provincially, nationally, and international media have always turned to the ACC for comments on business-related issues. As a CEO of a federation of 128 chambers of commerce, which in turn represents 24,000 businesses. Ken advocates for the policies developed by these individual chambers and adopted by the Federation as a whole. Ken's broad professional and political background has served him well in his position. He achieved his certificate general accounting distinction in 1980, which has allowed him to provide professional tax and accounting services to individuals and owned managed businesses. He also worked for the province of Alberta in the banking industry. Ken spent 2 decades in the municipal council of the town of Beaumont, where he currently resides. He was the mayor of the town for 12 years. Please join me to welcome to the stage Mr. Ken Cobley.
Thanks, Barry. For those who are back for the second night, welcome to round 2. As I mentioned last night, I was born and raised in Medicine Hat and had the great opportunity of running into my former English teacher in high school, Mr. Ted Grimm. He's in the audience tonight. Thanks, Ted. I'm honored to be moderating tonight's event for the Chamber. As a nonpartisan organization, the Medicine Hat District Chamber of Commerce embraces the democratic process and does not support any one candidate over another. All electoral candidates were issued an invitation to participate in our forums and were free to accept or decline. Before we begin tonight's debate, I'd like to take a moment to explain the rules to which all of the candidates have agreed. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement before we proceed into the question and debate portion of tonight's event. On the topics presented, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to a question that will be asked to all candidates. Follow-up questions may be asked, to which they will also have 1 minute to respond. During tonight's question and answer period, I may open the floor to debate following a particular topic to a maximum of 4 minutes per topic. And finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement at the end of the program. This forum is structured in a manner that allows equal opportunity for all candidates to express their political views and plans for action, and the effect this will have on business in this community. The structure of this forum allows you, as the audience, to hear from each candidate equally, so you are able to make an informed decision on October 16th. None of the candidates have any advanced knowledge of tonight's questions, but they were given a list of potential topics that we will be discussing. The questions for tonight's debate are directly related to chamber policy, which have been developed on behalf of local business. Questions were also accepted via email submission. Those chosen were selected in accordance with chamber policies and current issues relevant to our business community. Additionally, the chamber has submitted a letter to each candidate with 12 questions outlining topics such as intermunicipal collaboration, taxation, downtown revitalization, strategic priorities, service delivery, air travel, economic development, small business, job creation, sustainable municipal finances, red tape reduction, and fees and charges. And that's a list of what your chamber does for the business community here in Medicine Hat. These questions will be made available for viewing on the chamber's website by the end of the week. For the audience, I ask that you refrain from participating in the forum in any way other than by quiet observation. Please hold any applause or comments until the end of the forum. This is for your benefit, as we have a lot of information to get through this evening, and any interruption will lessen the time we have available to hear from our candidates. If you have a cell phone with you, please make sure that the ringer is turned off so that we are not interrupting anyone's answers. We'll be accepting written questions from the audience this evening, which will be collected by chamber volunteers and delivered to designated forum scrutineers. If you have a question to submit, please hold up your hand during the debate, and they will be collected by a volunteer. The volunteers also have paper and pencils if needed. The questions may or may not be included into our program this evening at my discretion and dependent on time. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to invite the audience to join me in welcoming to the stage the 2017 council candidates for the City of Medicine Hat. Mr. Bill Cox. Mr. Hugh English. Mr. Darren Hirsch. Mr. Michael Clausen. Mr. Miles Mulholland. Mr. Les Pearson. Mrs. Maureen Roberts. Mr. Charles Turner. And Mr. Brian Harga. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. Before we get to the hot topics of the evening, each candidate will have 1 minute to deliver an opening statement, which we ask includes their reason for joining the 2017 election and their qualifications and experience that will help them to govern this city. First up, we'll start with Mr. Cox.
My fellow citizens, I presume you all know who I am. I've been your neighbor, your friend, perhaps I was your lawyer, but if I wasn't, it's too late now because I've retired on March 31st. Hopefully, you all know me as one of your city councilors, a role that I have played off and on for 13 years. My politics are short and sweet, common sense and honesty. I favor the city's ownership of our utilities and keeping our taxes as low as possible while maintaining the high level of service that we've all come to expect. It's called the Medicine Hat Advantage, and it is challenged. but I believe that my experience and energy, my intelligence, knowledge, and integrity are well suited to help us meet that challenge and to strike the necessary balance that we are all seeking. I thank you for your confidence, and I look for your vote. Sign my name, Bill Cox.
Next up, Mr. English.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just in case there's any doubt, I want to clarify that my name is Hugh English and I am running for a seat on City Council. My work experience includes the private sector, business sector, and experience in the not-for-profit and public sectors. And I feel that this experience is extremely relevant to the position as City Councillor. I've also had the opportunity to volunteer and serve on many organizations and boards in this community, such as a past Chamber President and Kinsman Life member and on the Palliser Health Board. I feel that these experiences contribute as well to the decision-making process. I have a wide variety of contacts within the community, and I believe that it's very important to vet any possible decisions and issues against those, and I look forward to working with you in future, and I ask for your support here tonight.
Mr. Hirsch.
Thank you. As outgoing chairman of the board for Medicine Hat College, I welcome you to campus. My name's Darren Hirsch. I'm married to my wife, Denise, of 25 years, have 2 children, Rebecca and Joshua. Be short and sweet, why Darren Hirsch? My politics, as many of you know, I love politics and enjoy being in it. I was honored to be your alderman for City of Medicine Hat in 2007, honored to be your MLA candidate in 2012, and stand before you now as candidate in 2017. My community involvement stretches over 20 years, culminating in being the chairman of Medicine Hat College. I have 20 years of banking experience, and that involves dealing with municipalities and large corporations. I'm decisive. We went through a massive transformation in Medicine Hat College, so I look for your vote come October 16th. Thank you.
Mr. Glassen.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm a graduate of, this is really going back, so hang on, folks. I'm a graduate of Medicine Hat Christian School and Medicine Hat High School. I finished my post-secondary education in Edmonton. And my work experience has brought me to broadcasting, residential construction, and project management. I'm seeking a seat on council because I believe I have a proactive and cooperative voice when it comes to business development and community growth. October 16th is going to be a turning point as we vote. It'll be a turning point because it's going to be either business as usual or it's going to be open for business. We know that taxpayers need cost certainty and they also need fair value for service. The other thing that taxpayers need in this city is a city council that will advocate for their fair share from Edmonton and Ottawa. Thank you.
Mr. Mulholland.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity of being here this evening. I'm Miles Mulholland. I am not born and bred in this city, but my wife and my children are, and I want to give them a good reason to lay down roots here like I have done so. This city is a fantastic community and it's got great potential. I'm a veteran. I am currently working in the oil and gas sector, and as such, I've seen the economic troubles that we've had firsthand. We've seen businesses leaving and employees leaving, and they're not coming back. We need change. We need fresh perspective. We need to aggressively pursue new opportunities, and we need to work hard to create a business environment which is friendly and allow them to flourish. We need to grow our tax base and our population so we can provide the first-class services that this city deserves. Let's grow this city, not taxes. Thank you.
Mr. Pearson.
I have claimed to be the champion of inclusion and accessibility, and it's not a boast, it's a promise. I am a passionate believer in our community. I love this city and I love its residents. I'm a committed full-time councillor, member of 15 community boards and committees. But tonight I want to use this opportunity to express a sincere and heartfelt apology. I'm not perfect. And as a councillor, I regret very deeply the decision to implement a transit system that was not fully thought out. I owe an apology to my friends who use that transit system. And I deeply regret the inconvenience, the lost classes, the lost jobs, and all of those things that have caused hardship. I'm an old dog, but I can learn. I'd never do it again. Public services are important and they need to be retained.
Thank you. Mrs. Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Maureen Roberts. Many of you know me as Mo. I was born and raised in this great community. With the exception of a couple years at university, I have lived, worked, and played in this great community. I'm running for council because I love the city of Medicine Hat and its wonderful people. But like many of you, I do have concerns. So rather than criticize and complain, I'm going to do my part to serve. I want to ensure that Medicine Hat stays a vibrant community for the future. The MGA mandates that the role of a councillor is to listen, participate, research, and consider the well-being of all citizens in the decision-making process. I feel this sometimes has been forgotten. It's time for a change. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Well, I have to say this is the biggest interview I've ever taken. And that's exactly what this is. I'm interviewing for a job from you guys. I've been an electrician in the city for 15 years. I don't know, some of you may have been in your house working. I've been on the Canada, or I was on the Canada Day Committee for 15 years as well. Of that time, I held vice chair position for 3 to 4 years. I'm not too sure on that one, it's kind of iffy. I graduated the police and security program right here in this college in 2001. I decided to run for council because as an electrician, I need work. And if we don't have business working in this city, I don't have a job. I'm tired of sitting at home hoping to have a job tomorrow. And that's why I'm running for council. I got to do my part to bring work here so we can all work.
Thanks. Mr. Varga.
My name is Brian Varga. I've been a member of this community for 36 years now. Married to my lovely wife Brenda for 35 of those years. I've got 3 kids, 6 grandchildren, and most of them are right here in town, or they all are in town. They all live here, work here, and actually have businesses here. So myself, I'm a business partner with a landscape company in town. It's been going good for 3 years, and this has been a great year here. So I've been a member of this community and a leader in this community for most of those years, starting with my hockey days back with the Tigers, moving into minor hockey, being the general manager of minor hockey. So the leadership role is there. So when I wanted to be a counselor, I thought that leaders need to be responsible, and responsible to the city of Medicine Hat people. And I think that's what I've done over the last 4 years, gaining that experience. So I hope in October 16th you see that I made the difference in the last 4 years. Thank you.
All right, great opening questions, and I didn't have to cut off one person tonight. I gotta admit, I was somewhat disappointed. Okay, so now that we've heard from all the candidates, we're gonna move on to the question and debate portion of tonight's event. For new candidates, this one's coming your way. What will be your top strategic priorities while in office, and what will you do to see that your priorities are implemented? And we're going to start off with Mr. English.
Thank you. My first priority is in the range of fiscal restraint. It's very important that we live within our means, and the city has experienced a very significant shortfall in revenues. The second priority is communication. It's so important to communicate with the public prior to decision making to make sure that all the facts are considered. The third priority is teamwork. Working together to ensure that decisions that are made are carried out in consultation with the senior management and to ensure that they're measured to ensure that they're most effective and cost efficient. And my fourth priority is in terms of making sure that the citizens of Medicine Hat feel engaged in that process. It's very important that decisions be made not just for the people, but with the people. Thank you.
Mr. Hirsch.
Well, it's difficult in 30 seconds to elicit the whole list, but I have a 5-point plan. If you check my Facebook, it will be listed there. Having said that, my existing businesses to go out and have conversations with them, that we already have that undergoing. And then in turn, I'm very proud to continue the good work as I sit as the advisory board member on Invest Medicine Hat. There is some exciting things that are happening as we speak, but cannot be disclosed at this point in time. But ultimately, I think it's a matter of identifying some of the key issues that we have that are facing businesses today. And I think we all know that. Access to capital. As a financial advisor, if you will, as a banker, I sit with them and work with them in terms of looking at ways to deploy their capital in the best way. Looking for good talent within the community. This is where at Medicine Hat College, I've sat and worked with community members to get that happening. So that's where I believe that things happen.
Mr. Claassen.
First is connecting with the community. As Miles and I have been door knocking, it's amazing the responses we get. It's either, sorry, we don't have time to talk, or how much time do you have? So that connection with the community is the connection with the business ideas, it's connections with the hearts of people. It's a connection with keeping families here in Medicine Hat. Certainly internet connectivity is an issue that can be developed within our city. Our transportation, a logistics park. There's a lot of options, but of course it's that connection to community. It's what's in the hearts and minds of the citizens here. And relating that to growing the city and making Medicine Hat the great place it is to live.
Mr. Mulholland.
Again, as Michael said, communication is key, and that's what we've heard a lot on the doorstep when we've been talking to people. We're going to have to focus on growth as well. We're going to have to make this place attractive for new businesses to come here. We're going to look at introducing a layered tax system for new and expanding businesses over a 5-year period to give them a break coming down here. We're going to look at keeping the off-site levy with the municipal assist to help out as well. Business license streamlining, anything we can do to make this place an attractive place to invest and come. Because without jobs, people aren't going to stay here, people aren't going to come here. We can't afford to give people the first-class services that they deserve without growth, without business investment in this city. Again, connectivity, there's no reason why we can't have high bandwidth fiber optics. It will cost money, but it's a good outlay. The future is online. We have to start moving towards the future and moving away from non-traditional resources and into new avenues. Thank you.
Thanks. Mrs. Roberts.
Top strategic priorities. First of all, like everybody here has said at the table, listen carefully to input from the community. Restore communication and faith between the citizens, senior administration, and City Hall. As well, we need to ensure soft services are strong. Economic development is attracted to strong communities. Those strong communities that support their workers and their families. Thank you.
Finally, Mr. Turner.
Well, as was said earlier, everything's listed on my Facebook profile, but I'll also give you a very quick, brief summary of it. I want to see open and transparent government. My phone number, my email, my address is known to most of the city because of my Christmas light display that I do every year. My door is always open for people to talk to. I'm out talking to people constantly. We need to have that open transparency. We can't have closed-door meetings with anybody. Otherwise, we have problems like we've had recently. We've got to bring in more business. It's plain and simple. With more business, you bring in more revenue, you're not taxing people as much, you have the revenue income coming in. And we've got to cut spending, not by cutting services. We've got to think wisely. Let's say the flower bed, fantastic, beautiful things. Instead of planting flowers every year, why can't we plant perennials? Saves money every year. And then the utility advantage, we got to bring that back.
Thank you. This one's coming for the incumbent candidates. What was your top priority from your previous term? And what progress do you feel was made on the issue that directly resulted from your work and attention? We're going to start off with Mr. Cox first.
I don't know if I can say there was one. Certainly when we came to council 4 years ago, our top priority was protecting the city from floods. That was a commitment that we all made, and I think we've come a great distance in berming and other flood protection measures. We're still working on it, but most of what's left to be done can be covered by temporary measures if necessary, and we do at least get some warning when we have a flood on the way. Other things that have been important to myself, particularly we've been looking at trying to return the NGPR, the Natural Gas Petroleum Resource Unit, to the City of Medicine Hat, to a position of profitability so that it can continue, or return rather, to a place where it's contributing to the revenues that support the tax-based operations. Those are two of my important priorities.
Mr. Pearson.
My priority was always social wellness. That was one of our council's priorities, and that means a real emphasis for me on things like accessibility. We've done that with curb cuts on sidewalks, expanded that program immeasurably, and certainly also looked at things like public safety. The Community Foundations of Canada talk about three things that make people feel included in a community, and they are, first of all, housing, affordable housing. The city has supported Medicine Hat Community Housing to bring about affordable housing for everyone, and if anybody who wants housing, there's an opportunity there. Public safety is the second one, and our police service is second to none. We are always dealing with increasing problems such as fentanyl and other drug problems, but our police service is doing an amazing job. And finally, employment. And that's something I'm looking at right now as a major concern. Social economic development means jobs. When people work, they're happy.
Thank you. Mr. Varga.
I believe that we've done many things over our 4-year term. As Councillor Cox has said, it's not only one thing that we've done, but I think our biggest concern is our financially fit. With our commodities going down to what levels they are at right now, we have to look at different ways to do that. And I think the strategic plan and the people that we've brought in for our organization are top-notch people, and they're looking at ways that we can improve ourselves in the oil industry. The helium has come on board. We're not sure where that's going to go yet in the future. The funds that we do have, we're investing with AIMCO, one of only 3 municipalities within Alberta that are being allowed to do that, besides Calgary and Edmonton, so Medicine Hat is the third one. So I mean, we're looking at ways to move forward so that we can put money into the Heritage Fund. We're doing whatever we can through our organization to try and make it so that, once again, we become profitable in the long run.
Thanks. Next question. The second topic that we'd like to explore in tonight's debate is economic diversity. This question is for all candidates. 96% of Medicine Hat businesses are small business. With ever-increasing impacts on business from all levels of government, what do you believe is the city's role in assisting and spurring business growth and development to create greater economic stability? Mr. Varga, you're first up.
Well, that's a tough question, and I think we've talked about diversity lots with council. It's important for our businesses to thrive, and I think we've got to start from inside, where we look at the businesses that we have here so far, and we got to figure out ways that we can help those businesses, whichever way it is. I know we give grant programs for downtown revitalization. I think one good thing, a few people don't do renovations for the fact that when they come next year, the tax bill goes way up. So I think we got to figure out a way that once somebody fixes up their building and they find enough people to work in that building or hire way more people, we have to somehow find a way that we can maybe lessen that burden on them after they've actually spent maybe $100,000 to revamp their building. So we got to come up with better ways of taxing our businesses in the long run, and hopefully we can do that some way so that it's over a few years.
Mr. Turner.
For the city to assist in existing businesses within the city, one easy way to do it would be to reduce some of the utility service charges on there. I don't know if anyone else has had these issues, but the city's service charges are high. Another one is the land taxes. Yes, our land taxes are very high. Calgary has the lowest land taxes in Canada for non-residential properties. We sit about average. I don't know. We have to try to find a way. I really don't have all the answers. I want to be part of the answers, but I don't have all the answers for you at this time.
Thanks. Mr. Cox?
When we came onto council, we were talking about our top strategic priorities. One of the things we recognized back in 2013 was that economic development just wasn't really getting off the ground here in Medicine Hat. And we took immediate steps to remove ourselves from the Regional Economic Development Authority and to put our money into a much better organization, which has turned out to be Invest Medicine Hat. And through Invest Medicine Hat and with partnerships that we've been able to foster and establish Medicine Hat College, Defence Research Establishment Suffield, these are the ways in which we're able to grow local economy, bring high-tech jobs to the local economy, and in terms of economic diversity, I think we've done a good job. It's a start. It's always a work in progress, and it's something that we must pay a lot of attention to.
Mr. Clausen?
The city's role is that fertile ground that businesses can grow in. I think one of the ways, pardon me, one of the ways, of course, is a level playing field with local business licensing structures. They're all over the place. And of course, out-of-town businesses that come here to do work, they rightly so have a much higher business license fee. That would be one of the ways, pardon me, is that local businesses have a level playing field when it comes to their business license structure. The other issue being in residential construction is grandfathering houses into the code structure, so that when and this has happened to a recent customer of mine, when the inspector comes, they find something different and make you pay a bunch of money to fix stuff you didn't know you need fixing. And definitely keeping the grants, expanding them, business taxing, property taxes for business.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, I'm excited to announce a couple different things, but I'll go back when I was in City Council, I was the chair of MPC. And one of the challenges that we ran into is I'd have developers walking out the door saying, Darren, I just heard no, with no reason. And while I was there, I said, you know what, we have to change our culture to how do we get to a yes? Yes, there's barriers in our way, but how do we get to a yes? And that was the biggest change in my mind. When I was currently the chairman of board for Medicine Hat College, we're the sunniest city in Canada. We also have wind. So renewable resource, we have to be the center of excellence. And I was pleased to announce the microgrid that we're going to purchase through Medicine Hat College in partnership with Blue Energy out of the States that will allow us to a plug-and-play mechanism where people from around the world will plug into Medicine Hat College to determine loads based on wind and solar. That's exciting. We're creating a partnership with them to being able to be the education piece as well as the distribution center in Medicine Hat, and that's exciting news.
Mrs. Roberts?
Economic diversity begins with businesses that fit our community. As Mr. Hirsch said, solar, wind, we have opportunities there. It's important to remember that the city shouldn't have to buy businesses. We have partnerships with Invest Medicine Hat, the Chamber, the DMO and Tourism. These partnerships are what will make us strong and help with economic diversity. It's difficult to attract people and business and industry to Medicine Hat. As I said earlier, it's the strength in the community that will help bring that diversity. Thank you.
Mr. Mulholland?
Again, it's creating the fertile ground for businesses to come here. I mean, there is so much we can do with this city. If we can improve our connectivity, we can bring in financial services. This is a great place to live and raise your children. Why not have that? Why not have the small city life with the big city job? There's no reason why you can't do that. There's advances all the time in 3D printing and manufacturing. There's no reason why we can't provide grants and partnerships to have that come into play. Aquaponics, taking advantage of our great weather and of our great experiences of existing already with greenhouses. That's a phenomenal opportunity available there. But it all comes down to, as the candidates have said, changing the culture. We need to say yes more. We need to work with business leaders, our new investors, and get them coming here. Get them saying, if I'm going to work in Alberta, I want to set my business up in Medicine Hat. This is how we keep our young people. This is how we grow our city. This is how we make it the place to be for the next 100 years. Thank you.
Mr. Pearson.
Diversity is already happening in our community. When the oil and gas slump hit, people had a choice. They could either find work in other places and live in our community, and they do that, or they can do amazing things in terms of entrepreneurship. Check out the food trucks. That's just one example. But the thing that the City Council can do is advocate with the federal government, especially at this time, about small business taxes. And I think that's something that our City Council has done in a very good way. We've advocated with all senior levels of government on community issues. But I just want you to think for a minute about the businesses that have expanded in our community, and they've been many. Our business licenses have increased. So it's been in graphic design, graduates of Municipal College. It's been in culture. Think about the dance and artistic studios that exist in this community. It's quite amazing. We have that culture. And tourism. It's no accident that we're developing 5 new hotels here. It's because people are coming here. We have a higher rate of bums in beds than places like Calgary and Edmonton, believe it or not. We have a really good opportunity here to expand. These aren't...
I think it's time. We got your 60 seconds. I even gave you a little bit of...
Cut off.
I even got you, cut you a little bit of slack on that because we had a little bit of distraction going on. Sorry for that. We had a buzz coming off that mic. Can you do a mic test for me, just to make sure it's working? Oh. Okay, so there are parts of the program that you cannot script. Okay, so we're going to go with, try it again.
Hello.
Perfect. We're going to finalize with Mr. English.
Thank you. I think it's very important to realize that we are in a very competitive situation with other municipalities and other cities who also want to attract businesses to relocate, etc. So we have to be very focused in terms of what we are offering and very proactive. I think there's been some very positive things happening with Invest Medicine Hat. And we have to ensure that we continue to offer the right sort of incentives, whether it's land or taxation, etc., because of that competitive marketplace. The other thing that's really important is that we need to be open for business, just not as a slogan, but by the person's experience. The business person coming into town has to feel that everything is moving forward, and we don't want to have red tape or bureaucracy stand in the way of people wanting to make this a community of choice and take advantage of our great labor force.
Okay, this is a follow-up question. It's related to the question that I just asked you and you just answered. I'll give you a warning that after this question, after everybody's been heard, we're going to open it up to about a 4-minute debate. Okay, so after everybody's been heard, I'll look for hands as to who wants to elaborate on their points. Mr. Pearson, is a chance for you to really rev her up. Okay, so would you be willing to develop and adopt a business incentive plan for new and existing business? What would you include in this plan to incent businesses to choose our region as their community of choice? First up is Mrs. Roberts.
Okay. I'm at a loss. I am at a loss. I'm sorry, this mic thing sort of threw me out.
You know what, I'll tell you what. I know that I said before that we weren't going to come back, let somebody defer, but because what you went through with that mic,
yes,
we're going to move on. We'll come back to you as the last speaker.
Thank
you.
Okay?
Everybody's good with that? Perfect. Mr. English.
I was just trying to break this mic, actually. It's not working. Thank you. I think that I would be open to try to incent businesses to come here, but I think before doing so, I'd want to have some meaningful conversations with businesses, with the Chamber of Commerce, and develop a strategy to see what's best for the community. I don't think it's something that can just be done willy-nilly, and we need to have a plan in place to do that. Also, I think I would want to look and see what other communities are offering similar businesses so we could be competitive, that we know what people want, and we are looking to see how that business or opportunity might be a fit for this community, and make sure we match them with things to make that happen. It's really important, I think, to there's always that balance between offering an incentives or giving something away. But I'm a firm believer of getting people here, getting them to be purchasing and getting them into our community so that good things happen and jobs are created. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Turner.
Well, to assist new and existing businesses within our city, absolutely, I agree of giving incentives to bring in new business. I know it was brought up in last night's debate. Somebody was saying about giving away free land. I don't agree with giving away the free land. I agree with giving taxes away at the same rate we would undeveloped property for the first 5 years to entice them to come here, and then tax them accordingly after they've developed, on the condition they do develop. I agree with lowering our rate of utilities. We own our own power plant. We have our own black start generator, which the city or the province gives a kickback for because we're the only city who can start up the whole grid again. Like, there's no reason we can't give our own city lower utility rates and then charge everybody else going rates. That's an incentive to bring new business.
Thanks. Mr. Cox.
It all sounds good, but quite frankly, in a word, no, I'm not prepared to give incentives. You're pitting one community against another, one business against another. What are you going to give me? They're going to give me this. What are you going to give me? It's fraught with practical and legal complications. There are laws that preclude a lot of this kind of thing from happening. I think what's more important is to meet with new business and new business prospects and tell them what we can do for them. We can offer them long-term energy contracts at really competitive or better competitive rates. There are a number of things we can do to entice businesses here, but when it comes to offering incentives, you're basically buying somebody to come here, and how long are they going to stay, what's it going to cost you, and how many other communities are going to start doing the same thing, and where do you end up at the end of the day?
Mr. Pearson.
We've hired Ramaco and Destination Marketing to do the promotions. You know, something we have to recognize what our strengths are. These two organizations promote our city to an international market these days. And so I think that that's the main thing that the city can do. If there's $1 to be made, businesses come here. And we have to recognize what are the strengths of our community. We are a logistics center for all of southeastern Alberta and most of southwestern Saskatchewan. Guess what? We see the development on our doorstep. We see the expansion at the mall and other brand new businesses. Why are they coming here? Why did Target choose Medicine Hat over Lethbridge? Because we are a logistics center. Yes, it means low-paying jobs, but it means jobs. That's really important. And I think that the most important thing we can think about here is that we are logistics and a senior center. We have many extended housing and extended care facilities being developed because those are our strengths, and those kinds of opportunities exist.
Mr. Hirsch.
Well, a couple things. I was pleased to be part of the Intermunicipal Development Plan back in 2007. As we know, that's coming due. Instead of being adversaries in terms of trying to bring business, we need to be partners. What's good for the region is good for Medicine Hat. We're the trading area for Southeast Alberta. I think we need to remember that. I'll tell you what's happening right now. Never mind in terms of what I'm going to do. Here's what we do right now. As an advisory member for Invest Medicine Hat, we roll out the welcoming carpet to anyone that is looking to come to Medicine Hat. We've got a cross-section of individuals that are mobilized to meet with individuals that are interested in Medicine Hat. They're absolutely blown away with the courtesy. We bring the mayor in who sits on Invest Medicine Hat. So within that group, they have absolutely understanding in terms of how Medicine Hat is ready to accept their business and what skills we offer through the City of Medicine Hat College, and the low buildings that we have available at this point in time.
Mr. Clausen.
Well, first, we do compete with other jurisdictions. We're in competition for business with Swift Current, Moose Jaw, Lethbridge, Red Deer. I believe that we need to continue and expand the off-site levy. I know it's a contentious issue with some people, but that's okay. We also need to develop a graduated tax structure for businesses that come in, but also businesses that are here and expand. And if they increase the size of their facility, I think that the graduated tax structure should apply to that as well. I also believe that we should have a recruitment component where we actually recruit research and development, agricultural processing. We grow a lot, but a lot of it gets shipped away to be processed, and also information technologies. Thanks.
Mr. Mulholland.
Well, I agree with what a lot Michael said there. Graduated tax systems, off-site levies, municipal assists, these are all things that can be used to get people into place. We should do our best to get the emerging markets coming down to Medicine Hat. And there's no harm in looking at our competitor cities. There's no harm in looking at Moose Jaw, Saskatoon, areas like that where they have programs in place. Let's go there, let's see what's working, let's take that on board. Let's see what's not working, let's trim it from our system we have at the moment. We have a lot of opportunity here and a lot of potential. It's time we really start tapping that. We have a great location. We're straddling a border between two provinces and we're close to the United States border. We have two major highways, the Highway 1 and the Highway 3. We are connected. We could have a great logistics hub there if we tried. We could have a CPR rail hub here if we tried. We could have 3D printing opportunities going out everywhere. Again, a lot of it comes down to having the courage to make changes and to go ahead with those changes. Thank you.
Mr. Varga.
Well, a lot has been said already on where we're going to go with these incentives. I believe that part of this, because with our partners that are on the outside, they have lower land costs, they have lower taxes, and we're competing against that right now. It's great to work together with them, but I think in some way we have to give some incentives also. The City of Medicine Hat already gives out grants for enhancement in the downtown core, but I think we can do a little bit more with incentives for people that are going to come here. Invest Medicine Hat has preached far and wide on what the benefits are of coming to Medicine Hat. It's been a great organization to deal with, to work with, and to push our city. So working with them, they've already started it. They've already worked hard for the past 2.5 years, and I think we keep going with that flow with those guys because they know what they're talking about, they know what the incentives are, and they know what they can give from the city.
And we're going to circle back to Mrs. Roberts.
I appreciate. I have to agree with Councillor Cox. As I said earlier, I don't believe the city should have to buy business. All the other communities are vying for economic development as well. Again, where do you set the limit? We have strength in Invest in Medicine Hat, the Chamber. The DDIP program for downtown is fantastic. Again, I'm going to say that it's a strong community that will entice development, investment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to open the floor up to debate. This free debate will last no more than 4 minutes. No candidate will speak for more than 30 seconds consecutively. Candidates must wait to be given the floor before speaking if a candidate wishes to make a rebuttal. So, let me just write this down. Hands up who wants to speak. Okay, so far I've got Turner, Pearson, Varga, and Turner twice. Hold on. Turner, Pearson, Varga, Cox. I say yeah. Hirsch, Mulholland. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, so everybody will be given 30 seconds, and then once that's done, then we can circle back, maybe depending on the amount of time, to have somebody selected to make the second column. So we're going to start off with Mr. Turner first.
Perfect. I wanted to bring this up here. As everybody, I don't know if everybody's read it, but in the paper they said that the next 4 years is going to be boring. We're just going to sit around and wait for the bank accounts to rise. The next 4 years is not the time to be boring. Now is the time where we got to be pushing for new business. Like was just said, we have the number 3 highway, we have the number 3 highway, we have CP rail, we have access to the US. Why is Dunmore and Cypress County getting all the business and we're separated by a golf course instead of buying in Medicine Hat?
Okay, Mr. Pearson.
There are many, many possibilities, and I guess one of the key ones that we haven't talked about here is the fact that we are going to be the space center of Canada. We have that Open Skies program out at Many Berries. The industry is going to be located here. There's diversification and good jobs happening on our doorstep, and they're going to continue to happen. When we develop the helium field, we'll have a cryo plant here that will hire, again, high-paid technical people, and it'll bring us back more prosperity and lots of really good-paying jobs.
Mr. Varga?
Well, the question is on incentives, what the city's going to give for incentives. So I believe that, and I'm not going to agree with Councillor Cox at the other end of the table. So I think in some way we have to give some incentives to new businesses that are coming into town. We got to give them a reason to come to our city. And sometimes those incentives have to come forward. Like I said in the previous question, I said somehow we got to defer taxes maybe for a few years since they put so much money into our community.
Mr. Cox?
Well, you give me a great segue there, Brian. You don't incent businesses to come, you accentuate the positive things that are already going on here. You don't have to buy them, you don't have to reduce taxes in order to show them what a great community we've got. One of the things I like to do when I meet people is that are new to the city is find out why they came. And most of the time, almost all of the time, it's because of the great quality of life that we have going on here.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, it's funny, I'm born and raised Medicine Hat, and back in the day, it used to be Medicine Hat was the best kept secret. And that's not helpful when you're trying to market Medicine Hat. So I think what the tactic we used in Invest Medicine Hat was to literally do a survey, consult businesses that are here already, determine what their challenges are, and work with that. What we also found too is gaps. Did you know that we've got a bunch of drinkers in Medicine Hat? As it turned out, we now have breweries. And that was an
Mr. Mulholland? I really wanted to hear your comment about the drinkers.
We'll talk after over a beer. Yeah.
Mr. Mulholland?
Sorry, yes. I just wanted to address one of the points that was raised about championing low-paying jobs there. I mean, that's not what we should be aiming for in this community here. I mean, I've worked at several oil and gas companies who have left town. They're gone, and a lot of people I know lost their jobs. And the low-paying jobs, some of them had to get 2, 3 jobs just to try and make ends meet, and they still had to make cuts in their personal life. That's not something we should be championing. We should be going for higher-paying jobs, new markets, new emerging things we can actually make a living, not where you're struggling just to live.
Mr. English?
In business, you have to know what your competition is doing. And I think it's really important to know what other municipalities are doing and seeing how competitive you are. Not to give away the farm, but just to know what the playing field is. You know, another term sometimes used for Medicine Hat was the forgotten corner. And I'm glad to see that we're moving forward because I really think there's some positive steps in that. And we can make things happen by being proactive.
Does anybody who hasn't spoken want an opportunity to speak on this one for 30 seconds? I have 30 seconds left. Mr. Clausen.
I think communications and competition, that's what is bouncing back and forth from one end of the table to the other. But that's the situation that we're in, is our need to accentuate, of course, the positives of Medicine Hat and provide a fertile soil for businesses to come, because not only do they see it's a great place to raise a family, but it's a great place to start a business.
Great, thanks. That was the perfect example of a lightning round. The next question is for 10 points. Okay, so we're going to move on. Next question is, we're going to move on to the topic of sustainable municipal finances. This question is directed to our new candidates for council. With budget shortfalls and depleted tax rate stabilization fund, would you commit to maintaining competitive tax rates? And if so, what solutions do you propose to reduce expenses and manage service delivery? Mr. Clausen, you're up first.
Thank you. So that's a tricky question to answer, because we only have so much money in the bank. We either have to take more money from the pool that we have to increase the pool. And that's what we want to do, is to grow the city, to broaden our tax base, to make this an attractive place, sure, to live, but for businesses to come. So we need to look at responsible financial activity within what we have now, but we have to work smart to bring in new business and new families to broaden our tax base.
Okay. Just to clarify, I did mention that it was only going to the new councillors. We're going to expand this because it's such a critical issue. We're going to expand it to all folks on the panel. Mr. Turner.
By the way, did I say this is fun? I'm actually enjoying this. In order to keep our lower budget down, or our budget down, prevent spending, we got to look closer at inside how we operate our city. We can't be, and I already gave the example of planting the flowers. Another one is, with this bus debacle, we had, instead of changing everything, speak to the drivers. They know where to cut a route here and there. They know how to shave a few minutes off of a run. They know how to save a couple dollars on gas driving around. Another one I've seen a lot, and I've seen it a lot because I do a lot of work with people out in the cities and stuff, is don't let your vehicle run all day long. In the middle of winter, don't start it in the morning and then shut it off at the end of the day. You know, there's a lot of money wasted. There's countless ways where we could look inside, just in our own city, to save money so we don't have to go outside and take extra money or services.
Mr. Pearson?
Sustainable finances in our city is a difficult issue because we are involved in replacing infrastructure that's hundreds of years old, 100 years old. We have to do that. It's one of the things that will keep our community attractive to businesses coming into our community. It's the only way that we can maintain attraction that is the advantage. Low interest and low utility rates, gas and power. Those are things that are attractors, and so we have to invest in those things. That's one of the ways in which we attract new business to our community. We also do value audits. We've done them in the past. They bring about a major kind of savings. The fleet and fire services were audited, and we brought about some major changes as a result. I think that it's important that we balance investment with risk. We are at a point now where we can't risk very much more in terms of expenditure, but we've done a good job of husbanding the money and spending it wisely.
Mrs. Roberts.
Well, I'm really not qualified to answer this question, but all I want to say is that every year when my husband and I open up our tax bill, we pay it happily. We're fortunate that we live in such a wonderful community where we have low taxes, low utility rates. So yeah, I'm happy to pay my bill.
Mr. Mulholland.
Not happy to pay my bill. No, I'm joking. Joking. Sorry. Again, it comes down to growth. We need to bring more into the city in order to bring our books back into balance. We keep dipping into the reserves. The reserves are not going to last forever. Again, it's a hard issue. We need to look at ourselves. City Hall, we need to be reflective. We need to trim where we can. Again, value audits, not on just decisions that have been made before, but on new decisions moving forward. Is this going to help? Is this going to be the best way? We need to scrutinise more. We need to look more. We need to work more with people in the community. We need to work more with people who are going to be affected by these decisions. It's a very difficult question to answer, and the only thing we have at the moment is that we need to attract growth. We need to get the city moving forward from first gear into third, fourth, fifth gear.
Thank you. Mr. Cox?
Well, I think the question was, will I commit to not raising taxes given the situation that we're presently in? And you can't say that. However, I do commit to keeping the taxes as low as possible. And that was the financially fit program that we instructed our staff to embark upon, and which brought us to a point where we're pulling and pushing various levers and trying to make both ends meet in the middle. It's a difficult situation. We're hoping that we've got a new plan in place for our investments with AIMCO, so we'll be getting a higher return on those reserves. We cannot be continuing to dip into reserves to preclude a tax cut, or a tax rise rather. So when you've already got the lowest taxes in the country, it's hard to say they're not going to go up. They are going to go up, but hopefully it's going to be in an affordable, manageable way, and it's going to be offset.
Thank you. I think that this is a difficult question, but the word sustainable means that we have to do something now, because if we continue to overspend, things will not be sustainable. I believe that obviously we want to try and grow industry and attract new people to town. I think there's some initiatives being made. But in the meantime, we have to ensure that we're prioritizing our expenditures. and we're challenging people to come up with some in-house ways of saving money. I really believe that those are there, but we have to be focused and forceful to make sure those happen so we maintain our service levels.
Mr. Varga?
I believe that Mr. Cox hit on it, that council was courageous enough to go into the financially fit process that we took up somewhat 2 years ago, I believe. And I think we have to continue down that road. We've got the levers in place. Some of the things we aren't going to agree to, like fee increases, looking at different things, cost containment, which is a big issue with us. We have to look at our fleet, which we've lessened it by 20%. So we're looking at a lot of different ways that we can help the tax situation out because our commodities are so low and that it's not coming in like it used to years ago. So I think we stay the course, we keep working on the financially fit, we keep tweaking the levers, and hopefully we can get it to the point where we don't hurt our citizens that much, but we save some money in the long run so that you don't have to pay so much taxes.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, I might date myself, but the primary role of council was the protectors of the purse. Unfortunately, a hole has been created, and it's our job to patch it. So in unique situations like this, everything has to be on the table, and I think everyone has to acknowledge something has to give. Council will have to recognize that there's a tremendous amount of subsidies that are afforded hatters. And the challenge is between the user pay and the taxpayer. So when I was in council last time, they talked about what is fair. What I think is fair is having an event center that had a ticket surcharge on it, so that when a person entered from 7 Persons, Redcliffe, they actually contributed to that success of that building and looked towards repaying it. I didn't see that implemented, and it saddened me because I sat on the event center committee, and that was one of the recommendations. Unfortunately, Elvis has left the building when it comes to financially fit, etc. When I was in council, we had $200 million set aside.
Elvis has left the building, and you're out of time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Good comeback. Okay, next question. Okay, so our next question is related to offsite levies. This is a yes or no question, but we're going to give you 60 seconds to answer it. So, but at the end of the day, a yes or no. But clarify why yes or no. Through the advocacy efforts of the Chamber of Commerce, Council instituted a municipal assist with regards to off-site levies. The most recent off-site levy bylaw came into effect on September 1st, 2017. The rates approved will be in effect through to December 31st, 2018, with 40% assist through 217, 30% in 218, and 90% assist for brownfield developments through the end of 2018. If elected to council, would you be in favor of maintaining the municipal assist program? Mr. Mulholland.
Yes, I would be in favour of maintaining the municipal assist program. It's a great way to get people in here. It's a great way to get business investing, especially the brownfield assist. I think it's a great opportunity. We need to start filling some of our brownfield spaces, and the 90% assist there is a great tool we can use to help with that. So, yes.
Okay. Mr. Pearson.
Yes, because it'll mean downtown infill, and certainly the same with the flats. That 90% is a very significant kind of assist to construction and to builders. Yes, for the next 2 years, and after that, I don't think so. I think there's a qualified yes for that, because we know that the point that was made last night is the right point. It's taxpayers' dollars going to support developers and in their projects. And the developers pass that cost on regardless to the homeowner, to the people who are buying the land. And so it's a very good thing when we give an assist to a developer. It means instead of developing 1 lot, they develop 2 or 3, and yes, it helps. But you know something, we have to come out of this slump that we're in, and I see that happening in the very short future.
Mr. English.
I think that any time the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Medicine Hat come together and represent the voice of businesses who want to help develop things, that it's a win-win situation for the community. And so I would certainly be in favor of this for now. If all of a sudden the economy goes through the roof and down the road things change, any decision can be revisited. But I think it shows a great partnership, and it shows a real sense of understanding the community to make something like this happen. And I think we're smart enough to understand and react if there's any downsides to that. But I think it's a very positive thing, and I commend the Chamber for bringing that forward.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, simple. If we offer the incent offset levies to the developers, sorry, I'm getting confused, mixed up here. If we offer the offset levies as an incentive to the developers, that increases our tax base, which there in turn increases our revenue for the city, which helps in all of our financial issues that we're having. Absolutely. I see no problem with it.
Okay, Mrs. Roberts?
I don't understand completely the process of off-site levies. However, when it directly affects the citizens of Medicine Hat, I think it should have another look.
Mr. Clausen?
I agree with the off-site levy program. I think it's vital, and it's great to see the synergy of businesses and the city working together to make new projects more affordable. So, yes.
Mr. Varga?
Mine also is yes. We've had lots of discussion on this, and I know there's been lots of consultation with developers within our city as to what the right level would be. So the good part about this is that the conversation went on, and eventually we're going to wean ourselves out of the municipal assist, so it will be going to zero at one point down the road in a few years. So I think it's a benefit to the developers right now. They asked for it, they wanted it, and they needed it to keep things happening. So within the community, so that they could keep working on building their buildings. So I think it's important that we keep doing it for the time being up until 2019. And eventually, I guess the good part about it is that eventually we're going to wean off of it, and it's going to become zero in the end.
Mr. Cox?
The good part about it is we're going to wean off of it. Well, why are we on it in the first place? What is an off-site levy? An off-site levy is a way that the provincial government, through the Municipal Government Act, provides for municipalities to recover the cost of infrastructure. And with amendments, it's a whole broader range of infrastructure. In other words, the provincial government thinks we should be recovering more in off-site levies, not less. And it's a way that new developers pay their share of existing development that's already in the ground, taken place, and is either paid for or being paid for. And if we give them a municipal assist, a subsidy by any other name should smell as sweet. The money's got to come from somewhere. So where's it coming from? It's coming from you, the taxpayer. It goes on the tax base. So, or your utility rates. So if we eliminate, the municipal assist is just a subsidy that we can no longer afford.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, I'll surprise people by saying a qualified yes, and let me explain. First off, it should be reviewed annually for effectiveness. Priority number one with the municipal assist should be the densification of our city, looking at existing infrastructure in order to work at that. And what I mean by that is the wise use of the old Walmart property. Those services are already installed. We don't have any new roads to take care of. We don't have any need for more soft services of police and fire as we expand this city that costs money. But yet we're filling holes, and that's for me a very good priority. It embarrassed me every time I saw that Walmart sign and people driving through the city of Medicine Hat going, they can't even afford a Walmart. So to refill that was very important to me. Why I think it's qualified is that once we get into an economy that is rolling, do we really need an assist? Do you think Apple needs an assist right now? They've got one of the hottest brands out there. And as we move forward, that's the same thing that can happen to us once the economy turns around.
All right, so for those of you that liked that question, here's a follow-up. There is the possibility of changing the off-site levy bylaw to incorporate reduction in fees and levies through infrastructure projects such as roads rather than through a municipal assist. Would you be willing, if elected, to reopen the bylaw for review Why or why not? We're going to start off with Mr. Hirsch.
So I just want to elaborate on what we just talked about, is the fact that it should be reviewed annually given the circumstances of the day. I think just to be blindly saying I support it isn't really very functional, nor is it smart business practice. When you have to look at what lies ahead, you have to plan accordingly. Again, it is absolutely correct. The taxpayer contributes to off-site levies. So which pocket do you want out of it? And I don't want to dip into the taxpayer by way of increased taxes and or user fees and or off-site levies. So let the market forces be that way. If it needs an assist in order for us to become healthy and grow this community, I'm all for it. But if we're at a point in time now where everything is comfortable, the economy is functioning very well, I think we can ease off on that levy.
That sure worked out well.
Thank you very much.
Last question, first question, and that was preset. Mr. Cox.
Certainly we can review these kind of things. I'm not in favor, I mean, you talked about brownfields. There may be ways in which off-site levies shouldn't have to apply to brownfields the same way they apply to other areas. Likewise with perhaps the downtown. And if we're going to broaden the base of what we can collect for, that spreads the load perhaps a little bit further. So I'm open to, this is a very complex area. I know that the Chamber has developed a lot of policy on this, and they've been a strong advocate for keeping off-site levies as low as they can in the first place, and for developing the municipal assist to help developers avoid some of those costs. But I'm certainly willing to look at reviewing the bylaws with the changes that are coming about with the municipal government.
Mr. English.
Well, I think that the existing system is based on has been market driven, and that we had a need to help developers in this time, and I think it was a responsible thing to do. I certainly don't disagree with making sure that there are reviews on that, so that you make a decision based on the economy and what is needed. And if roads are brought into the mix or other things, then the decisions will be made at that time. But if the sense is that the situation is similar to what is needed at the present time, I would certainly support that, subject to listening to the rationale be presented at that time. I think it would be the responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Mr. Varga?
Yes, I believe also that it should be opened up. I believe that roads are used by everybody, so it's a little different factor that comes into play when roads are built and the levies are used for the roads. So I believe it should be looked at. I don't think it's a bad idea to do it annually, or on a basis where maybe something comes up where we have to change a situation. I believe it's very important that as the situations change over the years or over time, things should be looked at on a more regular basis. I think leaving it for 2 or 3 years down the road sometimes leaves us behind or sets us in a course to fail. So I'm hoping that this thing here that we can review annually, and with other things that are involved in the city that we look at, we can also review them on a more annual basis or on a regular basis.
Mr. Pearson.
Always we look at the comparison with other cities of our size throughout the province, and I think that's something that is a useful exercise every year. Roads are a special case, and you know, if you're talking about a residential road, I'm not necessarily in favor of changing the procedure for off-site levies. I think it's something that should be paid for by the developer, but there is a case for arterial roads where everybody's using them and they become feeders for other major highways or major roadways. So I think that it's always good to review, and I'm open to taking a look at those things on an annual basis.
Mr. Clausen.
Thank you. The way I look at this is the amount of money that, let's say, an empty lot, a brown piece of property that we have, generates as it sits. Then we look at the amount that piece of property generates for the taxpayer once it's developed. Obviously, there's a cost benefit to the development, and on the same hand, all processes require audits and evaluations on a regular basis. It'd be great to reopen it and see what benefits come to the people of Medicine Hat as a result.
Mr. Mulholland?
Well, I agree with Michael there when it comes to brown properties and things on them don't generate very much. A business generates more. But we should have no fear with reviewing things. We should let economic forces guide us in that. We shouldn't just go in there, make changes, trying to predict the future. No one can predict the future. We should look at options to basically address that situation when we get to it. One of the things I worry about is that if we keep tinkering with it every year, then we're going to drive down certainty. If an investor knows he's going to come here year upon year and it's going to be the same, levies going into place, he's going to be certain he's going to want to come again. But there is no harm in rechecking, going over something, make sure it's smooth. But we should be wary of making changes if the economic forces and the market forces do not support that.
Mrs. Roberts?
I'm going to pass.
Mr. Turner?
I agree. We need to, when it comes up, we need to open it for review. I do agree that it matters on the economic time, what we need to do. I know some didn't like the idea of incentives. I think it doesn't hurt to have incentives to grow our economy base and bring in more residents to our city. I do believe that we should not be paying for the development. The developer is there for a business, and they are required, or should be required, to pay a majority of their development. To help them out a little bit, to get a kickstart, to get the development to begin, you know, if it's a matter of we develop or we don't develop, if we give them a little bit of help here, I'd say we develop. We're going to get the tax revenue base out of it, and that'll benefit the city.
Thanks. Okay, so we're going to move to the portion of the evening where we have asked questions that have been submitted by the public. There were about 35 to 40 questions that were submitted online to the chamber, and we have a few questions that have come from the audience. So we're going to start with an audience question first. There has been reference about transit tonight. What is your position on transit and the impact on the financially fit plan? Mr. Turner.
I'm glad this one came up. The financially fit and the transit, it didn't work. It became a public disservice. I'm so happy to hear that the current council has decided to bring it back to the original plan. Again, it should have been looked at before they voted it in. I'll just stop there with that. And again, like I said, go in, talk to the drivers, talk to the people who utilize it. Not everybody who pays taxes or has utility bills uses our transit system. So I would say it's a fantastic thing that they brought it back, and I'm glad they did. Now we can work and make it a little bit better for everybody.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, unfortunately, we have a council that now created a net no decision, which is now going to cost us $200,000 or $300,000 to revert back to normal. I just find that shocking and it's sad. I think at the end of the day, we need to kind of take a look, and the way I look at it is, if we truly believe this program and all sort of city services are run efficiently, something has to give. How could you absolutely think that you could have pulled $750,000 out of transit? Something has to give. Either it wasn't efficiently run for decades, or you cut it to the bone when we were told it wasn't going to be. I think the truth lies in the facts. To think again that it's not going to be looked at, I think is inadequate. It's probably the wrong answer. But at the end of the day, we need to work with the transit advisory group, the user groups that are affected, and come with a mutual understanding in terms of what's effective. I'm not convinced that was done in the past.
Mr. Varga?
As you know, I'm one of the ones that voted to move it back to the normal way. I will tell you that we did get lots of flack and lots of feedback back from the ridership that was going on there. But I want to say to the people that this is a city service that's essential. It's something that has to be done within our community, and it's never going to make money. So it's a service that's never going to make money for our community. So we have to figure out a way that we can make it work to the best of its ability, in the manner that it has to be taken to the people that use it. What are the right routes? I wish we would have done a pilot project for the first months on this new issue to see and maybe work out all the kinks that were going on. But I think it's going to get revisited once the new council comes in, whoever they are. They're going to have to deal with this, and hopefully it works out where they make it a transit system that works for all.
Mr. English?
The question might be, who's driving the bus? It seems to me that this was an initiative out of financially fit. And while it was well-intentioned, it seemed to me that that it went wrong off the rails in that if the terms of reference were simply to cut money, then the impact on the service levels weren't disclosed. And I'm surprised that that was such a secret. I guess we also want the transit to be delivered efficiently. So my take is I think it's a black eye on the financially fit program, because it's going to end up costing a heck of a lot of money to pay for consultant fees and then reinstating something. I don't think this is over, and I think that it shows how important public consultation is, real public consultation, just not tokenism.
Mr. Clausen?
Obviously, it's an essential service. It's good, especially for the ridership, that it's going back to what it was. Obviously, there's costs that were expected to be saved, maybe in a naive way or an uninformed way, but it is an essential service. It needs to run efficiently, but equally as important, it needs to be user-friendly, because the people who rely on it need something they can actually rely on.
Mr. Cox?
There's no question that the system that we implemented was not working, was not serving the people that it needed to serve, and it needed to be fixed. I do not believe that returning to the old system without giving amendments to the new system an opportunity was the way to go, and that was the reason why I voted the way I did. I've since talked to a driver just the other day as I was walking my dog, spoke to a driver on First Street about the system, and he confirmed what I think a lot of us knew, and that was that the old system wasn't serving everyone as well as it might either, and it was costing a lot more money than it needed to. So we tried to fix it. The fix wasn't working properly and needed more money put at it, and before our staff had a chance to come back with budget appraisals of what it would cost to fix it, we just said go back to the beginning and leave it the way it was, which I think was a mistake.
Mr. Mulholland?
Well, I'm happy it's gone back to the way it was before. I'm sure the ridership is happy as well. It came across to me as a poor decision made in haste. It's cost us a lot of money in both ways, and it's cost us a lot of trust in our current council, unfortunately. It was, from my understanding, it was based off a survey, a general survey, from about maybe 5% of the population of the city, 3,000 people. When if we're going to make changes to transit, we should be talking to the ridership, to the drivers, to the committees, to the people who actually use it and rely upon the service at all times. It does call into question the financially fit program. They all talk about levers. This is one of the levers they could pull. It was pulled. It failed spectacularly. I worry that pulling other levers, they could also fail spectacularly now as well. There are efficiencies that we must make with transit, obviously. We can't keep the costs the same way as they are at the time, but we need to sit back and we need to do this properly. It could take some time to get it done right, but if we work together and work with the ridership and the people, I feel we can make a first-class transit system for a first-class city. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pearson?
We couldn't win on this one. The greatest complaint I heard from people prior to the change was empty buses. Big buses, empty buses, all those kinds of concerns about wasted money and dollars. The public service budget is the largest tax-supported budget in our city's organization. And where are you going to cut? Where are you going to cut? Well, criticisms about the buses. Wrong choice. We know that now. We did it not to harm, not to hurt, but to make a greater efficient system. I also voted in favor of returning to the old system, but it's not the total answer, and everybody knows it. One of the things we didn't take into account is the value that people put on that transit parkade, the place where there's shelter, there's washrooms, there are all of those kinds of things that it actually became a sort of a social hub, and we have to figure in the transit parkade in any future plan.
Mrs. Roberts?
Well, the debacle that the transit system recently went through, I believe, is a symptom of a larger issue. I believe the lack of communication from the community is what happened. Council did not research the needs of the community. I've been listening to voters, and what I'm hearing particularly about financial fit is that many believe that the financially fit program is a result of overspending during a downturn in the economy. I don't care if the money is in the bank or if you have to borrow it. Spending is spending.
Okay. Did I get everybody on that one? Okay, just want to make sure. Next question. We have a number of advisory boards and committees which provide communication and trained expertise on many areas. What will be your commitment to ensuring the input of citizens through these boards and committees? I'm going to start off with Mr. Pearson, please.
I am the eyes and ears of our community. I have to listen to all of the stories. I have to hear everything that people have as concerns. I'm the eyes as well. I have to read and see for myself. Advisory committees provide us with good advice, but you know something? Sometimes we have to listen and sometimes we have to judge for ourselves, and we have to weigh the differences. The good example is what happened with the transit advisory. We heard, yes, stay with the new system, and that wasn't taking into account the pain and the absolute misery that some people have been placed in with this new change. So it's important that we select good people who have an ear and an eye on the community, and that they are willing to listen to the stories of our community and act on those things. We have to listen. It's really important.
Mr. Clausen.
Well, communication certainly is key. And, pardon me, having the appropriate avenues for people to make their issues or concerns heard to City Council. Certainly maintaining those avenues of communication with those who live in this city is vital to a proper functioning transit system or financial system, business development. All of those things rely so much on the council's communication that's consistent with the people in the city.
Mr. Hirsch.
Well, we've got an advisory group for everything, and I think at the end of the day, we'd be foolish to think that councillors know everything and are skilled in everything. So having the ability to have a lending ear and people that are fortunate enough and willing enough to step forward in a volunteer capacity to give us our feedback should be applauded. One thing that I would identify that I'd raised 10 years ago, and it's still not in there, is we've got one big hole missing of an advisory group. We don't have an oil and gas advisory group. We've got a board of directors of a mid-level oil and gas company that have collective zero experience in oil and gas. But yet we're charged as councillors to make decisions on oil and gas. And for me, I still can't get over the fact that we haven't captured the people, many people that I've met already, that today, the Abes at Strathcona today over coffee, telling me, yeah, I've got 30 years of experience doing that thing. And I'd be more than willing to step forward. That shocks me.
Mr. Varga.
Advisory boards, that's where I got my start actually before I became a councillor, was actually being on some of these boards. So the Social Development Advisory Board, and most of these boards are very important because it's the eyes and ears of the community. They give their input for things that are happening within the community. As Mr. Hirsch has said, we don't see everything and we don't hear everything, right? So these boards come together, I think, once a month. They talk about things that are happening within the community and on issues that are relevant to them. So I think these boards are very, very important to the conversation, the communication that people are talking about up here today. So I think it's important that these boards stay on. And we do actually have a board on the oil and gas. So we do have a board that's already committed and is a big part of our oil and gas within the city of Medicine Hat.
Mr. Cox.
Advisory boards and committees are a vital part of how we gather public opinion and public input into our decision-making process. And their advice is always well respected and considered by City Council. That is isn't to say that we always agree or do everything that they ask us or suggest that we do. You elected us, we appointed them, we hear from them, but ultimately the buck stops with us and we have to make our decisions. I do also want to take some exception to the suggestion that we don't have oil and gas advisory. We do. Our CAO was a vice president of a multinational oil and gas exploration company and developer. Our head of the gas unit, Brad Maines, very well experienced, and at his suggestion, we've appointed a technical advisory team made up of industry experts in a variety of areas that come from Calgary and give us advice and reflect on our programming.
Mrs. Roberts.
I sat on 2 advisory boards. First of all, it was the Parks Advisory Board, now known as the Urban Environment Recreation Advisory Board, as well as the CCDA. It is, as Councillor Varga mentioned, a good way as a stepping stone up in your political career. Advisory boards are very important. It's difficult, however, to get engaged volunteers as seats are left for new blood to come in. It's important to get involved, to be part of the community, and to serve. They're very important.
Mr. Turner.
I do agree with having a city committee or advisory committee board and boards. Absolutely. Not everybody sees and hears everything. Unfortunately, they don't see and hear everything either. We can't rely 100% on what the board says. Our council needs to be open, listen, and accountable to everybody. How many people in our city want to see the arena shut down? Not very many. Well, it's cheaper to fix it now than it will be in 10 years to rebuild a new one when our city grows. I don't know what to say. They need to be more accountable. There needs to be more transparency with our committee, so then that way we can all understand what's going on and accept it. We can't just rely on one board to make decisions.
Mr. Mulholland?
I'm all in favour of advisory boards. I think it's great for citizens to get involved in the running of their city, and I think they give excellent feedback. It all comes down to communication and transparency, though. And one thing I would like to see brought in would be a ward system, so that each councillor comes from a separate ward in the city to give a focal point of contact. Before I started this campaign, I had no idea how to contact anyone on the current council whatsoever, or who I would go to if I had a problem within the area. A ward system would allow more competitiveness, more democratic process, and would allow people to represent what's truly great about their ward, about the area of the city they live on. We could still look after the whole city as a whole. That's part of the process of what the ward system does. But it would increase the ability for people to know who to speak to, who to call, who to get if they have problems straight away. Thank you.
Mr. English.
Well, I think advisory boards serve a very important function in the city, but I would suggest that the recent transit situation is not an example of that, and that I'm not sure what information was provided to the Transit Advisory Board, because with their terms of reference of looking after persons with disabilities and their transportation needs, I would have difficulty that those service cuts would have been made apparent in that detail. So I think it's very important to have open communication and to reflect and vet the information provided. You know, people are doing their best for the committee. We have a community, we have people who are very involved and know exactly what's going on in terms of working with persons with disabilities to see how their lives are affected, their curb cuts that have been done, the street light changes, a number of things that are very, very positive. And I think they serve a very valuable function, but we need obviously to maybe be more diligent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, again from the floor. What is your vision for the downtown core, and what do you propose to realize that vision? First up is Mr. Cox.
Downtown Medicine Hat is evolving. I remember the first election I ran in back in 1998. It was an issue then, it remains an issue today, but I think we have made significant strides towards achieving what is partly, certainly what is my vision, and I think what is the vision of a lot of us. for the downtown, and that is that it'll become a cultural and entertainment hub. What needs to be added to that is a strong residential component and a good downtown full-service hotel. Achieving those things is not easy. I can't do it alone. Council can't do it alone. It's going to take some private help, some investment. But I think we're making strides in that direction. I think the Esplanade was one step. It's some of the renewal downtown on the street front, and if we can get a residential component, we'll have it going.
Mr. Mulholland?
My view of downtown is it should be more pedestrianised. We look at larger city centres, they have large pedestrianised areas. It's a great shopping hub. It's a great place for people to go to. We need to improve our parking though. People can't really if they can't get there by transport routes, they can't get there by parking, they're not going to visit down there. If we can improve our parking, improve our pedestrianisation of the area, lower the speed limits if we need to in the area, down from 50 to 30 k's, why not? We could do more with the CCDA, we could do more to basically attract people to come down there. Myself and Michael were talking about the possibility of bringing the Thursday night jamborees back. Have late night shopping, have live music, have the food trucks there. Attract people to come down there in the summertime. Make it the place to be in the city. It's a great area. There's plenty of opportunity and growth there, but we just have to really start thinking more of outside the box and treating it as a pedestrianised shopping centre area, which happens to be outdoors as opposed to what we have at the moment. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
My vision for the downtown is absolutely bring in business. Have the new business, small businesses, everything down there. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen anytime soon with the amount of crime rate that goes on down there. How many people feel comfortable walking in and around the Tim Hortons? I'm not trying to signal one business out, but it's a very well-known hangout for a lot of people. We need to clean it up first. The graffiti down there is horrendous at times. I've been told that the CCDA that built that little park area in between the buildings, I've been told, why didn't they put a nice walkway in there, plant grass, trees, instead of some logs and a piano? You know, they just, everything everybody's told me, they don't feel that it's a comfortable place to be. They don't feel safe downtown. We can't develop it without it being safe for people.
Mr. Hirsch?
Well, my vision of downtown has been over many, many decades. I worked downtown, I worked for a major financial institution, and I've seen the involvement of downtown. I was the ad hoc chair of the Downtown Redevelopment Committee, which made strategic recommendations to council in terms of some of the programs that you see today. In fact, I was pleased to work with Keith Crush, now retired, so lucky for him. He was the past Economic Development Officer for the City of Medicine Hat. And together we actually created the downtown incentive program that you see that many people have been using. It is quite simply taken off to heights that I've never seen before, and it's witnessed with the redevelopment of some buildings that have just been absolutely beautiful as you go in, and they've captured the old essence of the building with new fixtures. So essentially we need to consult those people who, in addition to CCDA, consult those people in terms of what went well and what didn't go so well, and work on that foundation.
Mr. English?
I agree. I think that the downtown has certainly, the ambiance has improved through the years, and I think it's a great place to do business. I think the CCDA has put on many events and works on behalf of their membership. Like any organization, you know, not everybody is maybe fully on board, but it has to be a business-driven initiative for downtown. I think that the storefront initiatives and the beautification of the hanging baskets, that sort of thing, is very positive when people come to our city. And so I guess we can accentuate the positive or dwell on the negative. I choose to accentuate the positive, because if I'm downtown as a business, it's collective. If I don't shovel my sidewalk and you do, then I'm creating a negative impression. So I think we need to pull together and accentuate the positive, because many good things have happened.
Mr. Pearson?
So my vision of downtown is a place where the shops stay open, where there's lots of niche and boutique kinds of stores and businesses, very similar to what's happened in Moose Jaw. I like the idea that there is more residential, especially places that are developed above houses, above the storefronts, and that's where our incentive program kicks in. We are actually paying people to help finance the redevelopment of the upper levels for residential. That will help a whole lot in bringing vitality to the downtown. We need more young entrepreneurs, and we need more festivals. We really do. This is a place with great diversity, a place where we can celebrate that diversity, and the best place to do it is in the downtown area. At some point in the future, I would really hope that we make use of even the possibility of some kind of a mall area and closing off traffic. That happens when there's more traffic, more business, and an opportunity for growth.
Mr. Clausen.
I think of the 3 I's: ideas, investments, and individuals. There's a lot of great ideas being shared. My idea is actually a little bit bigger. I consider a river walk that includes the old arena site and having that actually removed and turned into a condominium, retail, medical office space, and incorporating a new Y into that area. It's a little bit off from downtown, but it would be a hub for people to live, to visit their doctor, to do shopping, and it's connected by a river walk to the rest of Medicine Hat downtown.
Mr. Varga.
Well, since I came here 36 years ago, downtown was a happening place. The Assiniboia used to be this place to go, and there was food stores downtown. There was a lot of places and a lot of things going on in the downtown. Eventually it took off and went a different direction, and the CCDA right now is doing a great job with trying to enhance what's going on. I think the City of Medicine Hat's grants that are coming forward to help people build on what they have. A little bit of the problem is that people that run businesses that want to come down into the downtown core have to have a reason for coming downtown. They have to see the profit in building, in fixing it up, in doing things that are good for their business, right? So I think that's the hardest sell of all this. We can give them a lot of things, but they have to see it as a positive point for them to make money. The bottom dollar is they have to make money when they come down to these new places. So I hope that some way we can do that.
Mrs. Roberts.
Well, having worked downtown as well as being on the CCDA board and seeing what the city had for a vision for the downtown and arts, entertainment, residential center, fantastic. The changes to the MGA will also help. There is a possibility to create a bylaw for non-residential derelict buildings that are holding the downtown core hostage for development. So that's encouraging. I've seen a lot of movement in the downtown core. A lot of tourists are coming, visiting downtown. We have a wonderful facility for gathering, for meetings. It would be nice to encourage a longer stay by having a boutique hotel. Businesses that will fit with more residential, such as a grocery store, a hardware store, a medical center. You know, the opportunities are amazing, and hopefully this current change will help.
Okay, so the time for questions has finished up. I'd like you to join me in thanking these candidates for their candid comments. Okay, so now we're going to give the candidates one final opportunity to address the audience with their closing statement. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to speak, and we're going to start off with Mr. Varga.
First to last, last to first. So anyways, I want to thank the Chamber for giving us the opportunity to come out here tonight and actually say a few words to you people that take time out of your valuable time to come and listen to us as councillors. I think that there's 8 councillors that are going to be elected, and there's interest there for the 19 people that are up here from last night and tonight, and I'm sure whoever comes up, the lucky 8 will be a great for the City of Medicine Hat. Over the past 4 years that I've been lucky enough to be a councillor, I think I've learned a lot. I mean, the things that have happened over those 4 years, we've got lots to talk about. I think we did 75 things once we look at what we did in the last 4 years as a council. So we're pretty happy with some of our achievements in all sectors of our priorities. From fire halls to the berms to a new arena or an event center, pardon me. We got to make sure we get it right. But I think for us is in the hope. The hope is that we can't get any worse than what we did a couple of years ago. The hope is that we're going to move forward. We've got fires in the irons for our oil. We're moving farther ahead with that. We're doing some exploring. We've got the option of some helium. We've got options that are coming through that are with our investment core. We're going to try and invest more of the money that we do have in our savings, and hopefully that comes through in the end. So there is hope for us to move forward. So hopefully over the next 4 years you give me the opportunity to continue what we did with Financially Fit, to tweak wherever we have to tweak, and hopefully you'll consider me on October 16th to help with council.
Mr. Turner.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Let me enjoy my time here. Basically, again, just like everybody's going to tell you, I hope you vote for me. But the reason why is because I want to see our utility advantage come back. I want to see the Medicine Hat advantage come back. There's no advantage when we're the average. We're not offering anything any better than anybody else. So where's the incentives? Our council has got to be transparent. I put myself out there every day when I'm at work and every year during my displays and stuff. Come talk to me. If I get on, I have no problem talking to anybody at any time. I enjoy talking. Business, we got to bring in business. Absolutely. Only way to build a tax base. That way we don't have to run into this. We don't have to worry about the oil and gas sector crashing. We have other possible avenues to look at that can help support us in these rough times. We are the central hub for Calgary, Lethbridge, the States, Swift Current. Everything comes right here. Why can't we utilize being the central point of everything? Streamline City Hall. We're talking about this financially fit. Absolutely. Everybody, every one of us who's feeling the pinch has to be financially fit. Our city has to be financially fit and not take it out of the pockets of the people who are already struggling. We've got to find ways within house to try to make things work better. And we cannot drop services. City services are a service. They're not an option. It's something that must be provided at any cost. That's all I can say. I hope I did good, and I hope I will do better. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts.
It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I have spoken to so many people. I've answered phone calls, emails, text messages, social media posts, and it's so encouraging when people are supportive. I know if I'm successful, people will not always be supportive. I am obviously not as financially savvy as some of these gentlemen at this table, and I appreciate the invite from the chamber to sit at this table. It's a little nerve-wracking to pull yourself inside out to try and discuss the things that you're passionate about and what's important to you. I just want to let everybody know that I'm a smart woman. I am innovative. I'm committed. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that was very politically active. It wasn't just around the dinner table. It was in everything that we did. We learned, my siblings and I, that it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. So I hope to bring that to the table. I look forward to your support, to hearing your comments and concerns. And please don't be afraid to get a hold of me. social media, Facebook, Instagram, or phone me. And I thank you for your support.
Mr. Pearson.
My commitment to the city runs deep. I have to tell you, I love this place. My commitment to it is deep. I love being a full-time counselor. I love the job. And I love it because it gives me a chance to make a difference. Every once in a while, we know that we make a difference for the better. Nobody around on this table or on previous councils ever wanted to be a counselor to do harm or to do damage. We all want to make our lives better in this community. I want it to be a community of choice. I want it to be a place where everyone belongs. Our community is changing. We have to take into account the diversity that is in our community and the kinds of people that are now in our community and need to become our neighbors and our friends. And we need to celebrate those differences in a major way. That means getting to know our neighbors in a very friendly environment. It's acknowledging the things that we've had a hard time acknowledging in the past. Our Aboriginal heritage in this community is so important, I think, for us to think about and realize that we have a debt that we owe to all of the people who have been here before we came, before the invasion of Europeans. Those are all really important things to me. And I think that by looking at these kinds of concerns and listening to the voices that are out there, the people who have a love and a concern for everyone who's here, I think that we can make this a very, very real community that is vibrant, community of choice, a place where we love to live, work, and play. And I'd like to see us develop all of those three things. I think we've tried to do that in past councils, and I ask for your vote on the 16th to help me continue to do those things. Thanks.
Mr. Mulholland.
First of all, thank you to the Chamber for setting up this debate and for their kind invitation, and thank you to all of you for turning out. I hope my accent has been not too hard to understand, at least. I love this city. I came over here many years ago and I've stayed here. I love my family, I love my children, I love my friends. It's a great place to grow up. And I don't want to see this city slip into reverse gear. I want to see it move forward. I want my children to pick this place. I want all of our children to pick this place as the place they want to be in, they want to grow in, they want to work in. Which means we have to embrace new markets. Yes, we need to keep the existing markets that we have, but the future is moving on. Myself and Michael have been doing a lot of joint campaigning together on the doorstep, and we've had a lot of things off people. And one of the reasons why we have been joint campaigning is that council is not individuals, it's a group effort. We all work together for the better, and we feel we can work together for the betterment of this city. Again, this falls into award system as well, which I spoke about briefly earlier on. Having an award system, I believe, would help this city. You know, we have to try and grow. We have to do everything we possibly can to attract new business here. There are so many more markets out there, not away from our traditional avenues. And I'm hoping that if elected on the 16th, I'll be part of that process to help lay the groundwork for us to move forward into the future. Thank you very much.
Mr. Clausen.
Thank you. It's been a great evening, possibly entertaining. If nothing else, it's been informative and educational. And kudos to Chat TV for streaming and embracing that new technology. That's great to see the red tally light there and all the people at home. Medicine Hat has great potential. As Miles mentioned, we've been knocking on doors together. I think one of the things that impacted Miles and I the most was one particular senior lady who was in tears because she was talking to us about how much her and her husband have had, I should say, the increase in their property tax. And she was in tears because she didn't know going forward how she was going to pay her property taxes in the years to come. And that kind of hit both of us right in the heart. And we have been connecting. We want to continue to connect. And we know the key is to grow our city, to broaden our tax base. And I mentioned Medicine Hat has potential. We have potential for a logistics park of train to truck and truck to train. One of the other things that we've talked about is using Highway 120 to connect Dunmore, 7 persons in Redcliffe, and back to Highway 1. And that gives us a perfect opportunity to use the rail there, the highway, to have an inland terminal. And not only that, but in future, that lends itself to having a brokerage clearinghouse so that businesses don't have to go to Lethbridge and Calgary to have their incoming shipments cleared through a clearinghouse in one of those cities. The other thing is using our waste to create synthetic natural gas and burning that as clean electricity. Certainly in the last couple of years, our green initiatives haven't been as fruitful as we would like, but thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Hirsch.
Well, first off, I want to thank the Chamber and yourselves for coming out and getting educated on each of the candidates and where they stand on things. As I knock on doors and have my visits to coffee shops, meet people every day in the day jobs and just having conversations, I'm hearing 3 different distinct issues. Number 1, being proactive and not reactive. And I didn't mean to bait Mr. Cox in terms of the advisory group, but the fact of the matter is the advisory group was a little too late in the formation because the bottom fell out. There was no illustrated plan for the oil and gas industry, and that saddens me. But number 2 is be decisive and make good decisions that are not politically driven. Only you can look at transit as a prime example, and I think we've heard apologies, but I think that's not good enough. Number 3 is the financial stewardship. At the end of the day, I challenge all of you to go on the city's website and look under the financial statements for 2016, and I did, and I was quite shocked, to be honest. I think the number 1 primary goal, again, we talked about, is protector of the purse, and that's not necessarily in play. There wasn't any plan B, and when I deal with my clients, I always ask them, what's your plan B? All of you have to think about your plan B. Do you have your savings in line in terms of a catastrophe? Well, folks, we had a catastrophe and there's no plan B. So that being said, I look at, okay, we are in the situation right now, so what do we see that lies ahead? And quite frankly, it's a consolidation, and everyone has to pitch in. Everyone has acknowledged that we have a situation that we have to get ourselves out. And there will be service adjustments, there will be taxation issues, but together I think what we need to do is understand that we will get out of this. We will see commodities rise. We will see advances in renewable energy. But at the end of the day, I think it's important for us to come together, and we will have a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. English.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight and sharing this evening with us. I think it's been very informative and a very important evening. I feel that I have the experience, the enthusiasm, and the passion to be a representative of your views on a city council. We are a community of choice. On October the 16th, it's time for you to make your choice. The nominations closed on September the 19th. 19 people put their names forth for council. I liken it to a training camp for a hockey team. 19 people are going after 8 positions on the team. That includes 7 incumbents who want to keep their sweaters. The whole thing about democracy in action is it's your choice. You have the choice to choose the team you want to go forward for the next 4 years. When you're selecting a team, you're going to pick the talent and the skills that you want to move forward. And you're going to look at what you think is best. And I know that everybody who's come forward and put their names forward believe that to be the case. So, when you choose your team, it's very important to move forward and make those choices. Because, the electorate is never wrong. I've heard it said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I don't think that that's good enough anymore. And I think that it's been a pleasure to be involved in this process. I believe that it's time for you to choose, and I very much ask you for your support in the upcoming election. Thank you so much for this evening.
Mr. Cox.
It's better working together than working alone. You can't do it by yourself. I heard those words this afternoon from Dr. Ken Sauer as he spoke at the opening of the school named in his honor. And it immediately struck me that those were words that I wanted to use in my summation because they identified what I think is critical to this whole election process. No one city councillor can achieve a result by himself, not even the mayor. You've got to work together. You've got to build a team. I think our last city council has been a team. We didn't always agree, but we found ways to be respectful in our disagreeing, and we found ways to make decisions which we could support going forward. Now it's your turn. You're part of this process. We can't do it. Council can't do it without you. The community has got to be a part of the team, and we have to talk to each other and listen to each other. And now is your opportunity to consider your choices, to build the leadership team that will lead the team, that is all of us, as we move forward. Yes, we face challenges, but we have a great community here, and I think we can make it even better. And it's my solicitation of you this evening that you will consider my experience, my knowledge, my energy, and my integrity, and place me back on that team so that we can together move forward. I thank you for your confidence, your respect, and for your vote on October 16th.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the candidates for their comments and their presentation. Just a couple of things before you rush out the door. First of all, I particularly liked the hockey team analysis about making the team or not making the cut. Go Oilers. Oh, how quick a crowd turns on you. So that's going to conclude our second of our election forums. I'll be inviting Perry Deering up here in a minute to close off. Remember, we have the mayor's debate tomorrow night. That should be worth the price of admission. Because of time constraints, we haven't been able to get to all of your questions, but the Chamber will be forwarding scrutinized questions to all the candidates, and they will publish any answers that are received from candidates on the Chamber Municipal Election page at medicinehatchamber.com. Okay, so before you go, I'd like to bring back up Perry Deering, President of the Chamber of Commerce, to say a few final words.
Well, you can see that the Chamber's proactive. We're sharing mics now. Thanks everyone. And when I made the introduction of Mr. Ken Colboy, there was no doubt that he's very good at what he does. So a round of applause for Mr. Ken Colboy. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you for attending the forum here tonight. It is the Chamber's responsibility to help the public better understand the issues at stake in our municipal election. And where our candidates stand on business-related issues, we hope that attending tonight's event, that you are able to make an informed vote on October 16th. Like Ken had mentioned, tomorrow night will be the mayoral candidates at 7 o'clock, so everyone make sure you attend as well. I'd like to just also thank the Medicine Hat Lodge for their contribution in working with us tonight, so thanks to them. And of course, our staff, they work hard in putting all this together, so thanks to the staff. And of course, my team. Everybody had seen my team when they came in. Thanks to my directors for volunteering and doing such a great job. So, thanks. I won't hold anyone up anymore. Have a nice evening, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow.
Thank you.